I won the housing lottery. And it's difficult when you're a nonfiction writer because your material is only as good as the circumstances present themselves to you. Had I lived somewhere else, the story would have been different and my experience would have been different. I arrived in China by accident. I applied to the Peace Corps when I was an undergraduate. And 3 weeks later, the phone rang and the guy said, China. I spent 2 years in Sichuan teaching English. And then after that experience, it felt like a waste to just go home because I had learned Chinese and I wanted to continue exploring China. So I moved to Beijing and I was working as a teacher and working as a journalist. And at that time, in the build-up to hosting the Summer Olympics in 2008, a lot of traditional Beijing neighborhoods were being pulled down or being transformed. And I wanted to get a sense of, well, what's being lost here? And so I thought, all right, if I want to keep a record here of what life is like inside the hutong and what is gained and what is lost by preserving these communities, I need to immerse myself in it and be part of it. The first book I wrote is The Last Days of Old Beijing, Life in the Vanishing Backstreets of a City Transformed. So I moved into the hutong in 2005 and volunteered at the local elementary school. Dr. Lar, this neighborhood is one of the densest urban networks or urban neighborhoods in the world. And at first, the people that I was sharing the courtyard with were really taken aback about, well, what's this tall, bearded white foreigner doing here? And there was an elderly woman who was sort of the mayor of our little courtyard. And she looked at me the first day and said, listen, we have one rule about living in this house. And I said, okay, what is it? And she said, public is public and private is private. I said, okay. She said, no, repeat it. I said, public is public, private is private. And then the next morning, at 5 in the morning, she opened my door without knocking and said, wake up, it's time to get up. And she had a steaming bowl of dumplings. And I said, I was rubbing my eyes looking at her and she had her cigarette going with the ash dangling and the steaming dumplings. And I said, I thought you said public is public and private is private. And she said, in a courtyard home, everything is public. And that was really the introduction to my life there. I was volunteering at the elementary school. I followed the same kids from grade 4 to grade 5 to grade 6. And they were always coming over to work on their homework or their parents were stopping by with things. So it was a very public life that felt a bit like urban camping. There wasn't running water, there wasn't a toilet, there wasn't heat. And yet, for all of those detriments of living in that home, there was such a great density of life and a real warmth with the neighbors. The mayor of our courtyard, the widow, was such an integral part of my life. She really became like my grandmother. And it surprised me, I thought I was writing a book about the preservation of tangible cultural heritage. But the book turned into something else as I was doing the research, and it became a book about intangible cultural heritage, this dense social network that forms within these hutong communities. And in that courtyard, my neighbors became family to me. And when I think about what I miss about living there, I miss them.